Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks. Today we have Tessa White. Tessa White is the job doctor, and she's amassed a massive following on TikTok because she goes in the world and she tells people how to be able to pretty much like live an amazing life in the corporate realm. Not so much like in the corporate realm, but how to look at the job you have in ways that allow you to enjoy your job a little bit more. So her book is called The Unspoken Truths for Career Success. But our conversation today is really deep on the misunderstandings that people have about their job and how to keep their job and actually how to level up in certain areas. She actually breaks down the 5 different levels of a leader and different levels of a job that I'd never heard of, to be quite honest. And so I go, man, the world needs to hear more of that. So if you're in a place you're like, man, I got this career, I love my job, or I know someone that does, but I want to be able to level up, or I want to be able to predictably go to the next tier and get a promotion, or you want to understand maybe why you've been getting like jobs and get fired recently, you have no idea why it's going on. Like, this actually is a great episode to uncover that, and then from there be able to follow on later to know how to solve that problem. So tune in the episode. That's it. Let's hop into it. Hello. We are back in the show. We have today Tessa White, and Tessa is the job doctor. We were just talking briefly beforehand, and all HE double hockey sticks has broke out in all the best of ways and what she does for the world. And they were going to unpack really where it's been kind of a joy to have her create what she's done and have it blossom into something amazing. But it's not just about her. It's about you. It's about what can be done for your life and how it can tie into what you are maybe thinking about for your future, how your whole world's unfolding. Her daughter did something cool that we're going to unpack and let her tell you about, but it's done something cool for the world from that. So Tessa, hello, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this because you and I have both had some interesting life experiences.
Yeah. I want to hear about all those. We're gonna unpack all those the best we can. I always start their podcast with one question though. So this question's gonna be one. Let's say I'm walking around town and I sit down in this coffee shop next to you. I don't know you, you don't know me. And you for some reason feel compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
Why should you listen to me? Well, I'm a human being. Let's start there. I find it incredibly important that we connect with each other on a very human, personal level. But as to what I do, the job doctor, you would listen to me because I think I can help you avoid decades of trying to figure out how to make your experience working in the corporate workplace, which can be very difficult. I think I can shortcut some problems, and I can help you avoid some of the things that have made my own journey, but my own unique perspective. I've watched as the head of HR, tens of thousands of people's careers rise and fall, and I get to have all those backroom conversations. And I think I've learned a few things about how to create more frictionless career growth for people that can be very, very useful and actually help change lives, I think.
I like it. I'm assuming you know. I don't think it's a thing from what I hear and how it's going. Like, you know, you can, so it's awesome. So this becomes a conversation where I do want to start back at the beginning then, because that's not something that everybody just does, right? There's a journey to getting to that point of having to be your expertise, and you drop the seed of you have an interesting past, and I'm curious because I'm sure everybody else is curious. Do you mind taking us back and walking us through that?
Sure. Well, if I go back far enough, I ended up a single mom with 3 kids, no college degree, had to figure out how to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And pretty scary time for me. I had no career to speak of, and I had to figure something out pretty quick. So I got into HR. It's the only thing I thought. I can talk to people, I can type.
There you go.
I got a job, and I happened to get a job working for Stephen R. Covey. Can you believe
Oh, really?
that was?
That's
So I'm
one of my
working
favorite
as a leadership guru, and I learned a ton from him, and it really started my journey. And if you fast forward 25 years, you would find me in a Fortune 50 company as the head of HR working with Blackstone. I'm in New York, driving board meetings. Yeah. And it makes it look really easy when you fast forward, but it's the in-between part.
Yeah, it is.
It's really hard to go from nothing to something.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit, I said, you know what? I really want to work the other side of the problem. Instead of protecting companies, I want to protect people. Not that you have to choose one or the other, but I could see that there was some gaps. And so in the pandemic, I started the job doctor. I was bored in my house, and I built a website, and day 3, my daughter put up some TikToks. She said,
Really?
Stuff's really good, Mom." She put
Yeah.
them up. And my son called from California 3 days later, and he said, "Hey, Mom, is this even possible? My girlfriend said she saw you on her For You feed. That can't be
Wow.
true." And I go back to the TikTok and check, I've got 10,000 people.
Oh,
And
wow.
3 days. And I've had 1,000 followers on average a day since then.
Wow.
And it has really taken me on this fantastic journey
Mm,
into helping people navigate their own careers.
I like that. So what was the TikTok? I'm curious. What was it about?
It was just a career TikTok.
Yeah.
That's all. Just basic.
Interesting.
How do you interview? How do you do this? And it just happened to hit at the right time when everyone
Yeah.
else was home.
Mm,
And there weren't a lot of career TikToks, and it just happened to hit at the right time, the right place, right
yeah.
content, and
Yeah.
took off from there.
But all that right stuff is like it's also the right person at the right time too. Like it's a lot of that has to do with what you had to say and the way you said it. I'm sure I'm gonna have to go watch this. I'm unhappy that I have not seen this TikTok yet. I guess I'm not looking for jobs. Maybe that's why I didn't get put in my For
Yeah, I
You
think
feed.
you're
It's
taking
okay.
care of jobs.
A little bit, little bit. But no, it's good. I like that you kind of just put something out. So what was the energy and the reasoning behind doing that? Just your daughter was like, "Hey, go do this." Prior to that, what was your plan to get it out to the world?
Well, I worked at a place called Vivint Solar, and
Oh
to
yeah, I've heard
describe
of
it,
it.
it's door-to-door commission salespeople,
Yep.
basically about 4,000 rows with flat billed caps,
Hmm.
and about 10 adults in the room. And so
Hmm.
I had this great experience to work with these young millennials and Gen Z people almost exclusively, and I could see something was happening. It was
Hmm.
changing, and they learned different, and they thought different, and I had to adapt very quickly to what that looked like.
Yeah.
And so when I left Vivint Solar and decided to do this, I thought there's just a need. There's a need, and I don't think long training that the company is going to bring in will help these people. It's
Yeah.
short form learning snacks, very quick,
Mm.
and social media is you meet them where they're at. That's where they were. So
That's
that's
good.
where I went.
That's smart, man. It's wise and smart because I had to have been at some point in time. I mean, if you because I'm not aware of the world of people who have never been in social. Like I was kind of that really interesting millennial group that like we were kind of like growing up with it, so to speak. But like my kids are in a whole different world with it. They're so well adjusted to it because it's their reality. For me, I go, that's my reality. But I also know there's some people that are like, I don't want to step into that. That's an area I don't know. Did you ever have the apprehension of going to a new place you've never been before, like called the social world?
Oh, every day. I don't know what I'm doing. Every day I have to play with
Even
technology
now,
I've
huh?
never touched before. And the first little while I
Yeah.
was scared by it. And now I'm energized by it. All the time, all day long. I'm like, what happens if you push this button? I wonder if I try
Uh,
this idea, will it work? I'm the most experimental person. It's like at age 50, all the fear
yeah.
that held me back my whole life somehow blew out the
That's
window,
great. Wow.
and instead of sitting in the boat while people water ski, I'm like, let me try on those rocket jet
Mm,
skis. Let me try that. And I am not afraid. And so that's
mm,
really served me well as I start my business because I've been extremely experimental with
mhm.
everything that I've done. And by and large, it's worked.
There's something to that though. I think the
I think
when
so.
people humanity see someone playing loose, not like loose in terms of out of control, but like, playing a little bit looser, like letting it all hang out. I think we notice that, we see that. And I always think it's fun when people you can just look at them and go like that's really that person. They're not flipping some switch and becoming this person for the camera. Like that's who they are. I think we've watched enough video to understand who's doing that and when they're not. So I got a feeling that if this is how you're coming across now, like you probably have just like a connecting point and you're probably pretty good at just the video aspect. And then great content comes through that helps people. So I can see why it takes off and goes viral.
Well, the other thing I learned is that stop being so afraid of what people will think. The first
Mm,
few
true.
TikToks I did, I would be so nervous I'd want to erase them. And then I
Yeah.
realized, so people, yes, they're watching, but nobody cares that much. And
Yeah.
so stop waiting for things to be perfect and just do it. I mean, if you saw some of my TikToks, there are days I've got mascara smeared across my
Yeah.
face, or I
Mm,
haven't put on makeup, or, I look terrible. I don't care. I
mm,
care about the content. I don't necessarily care about what I look like. And what I
yeah.
found is people care less than we think they do. They're thinking about us less than we think they are.
I agree.
And so I just don't hesitate. I go. Just every
Mm.
day, I just go.
It's a big thing. And I think that also ties in, even if it's non-entrepreneurial, right? There's a part of that that's necessary for all human success or achievement in some manner. Do you find that in the work you do around the job doctor, do the traits that you're talking about now, do you see where they could show up in someone's ability to climb the ladder if they want to have a typical, like we'll call it regular job or interviewing? Like, does that stuff carry over? Is it beneficial to learn that?
I think people underestimate themselves all day long. I think they think, and particularly women, think that they aren't capable of doing the thing that they envisioned for themselves. They often sell themselves short. And part of what I do with people, I have Rent My Brain sessions where I coach people.
Interesting.
And it is absolutely incredible if somebody has somebody else saying, no, you can do it. And let's take this first step, do this, then do this. And then you back it up with some of the knowledge that I have around different career paths and help people pick the right thing. I had a lady that was cleaning hotels for a living, single parent. She's now making over $100,000 a year as a software developer.
Interesting.
Software engineer. Who would have ever guessed she could have done it? Least likely her. But sometimes just letting people be exposed to what are the paths, how do you start, where do you go, and having a cheerleader in the background. But people are capable of so much more than they believe.
Yeah. I'm starting to get an idea of why it's called a doctor, because a doctor comes in when somebody has like an illness and it's like, let's find the root cause and give you the medicine to help make you better. And I can tell like there's something there. So I want to unpack that. So when you call yourself a job doctor, what is that? If someone goes, what in the world's a job doctor? How would you explain it to them?
I would say I'm the person that can help you figure out how to position your interview, the story you tell in your interview better. I can help you build the right resume to get noticed. I can help you get out of trouble at work. I do that quite often. Help somebody with a career strategy. Most people just wake up and they're not thinking about what's next and how do I get there, but I help them create the path and the scripts. I'm very practical. So I'm not somebody that has people do, big, deep on theory, read these theoretical books. It's like, use this script, use these words. Here's what gets people in trouble at work when they're having a hard conversation. Here's why they go south. I want you to say it this way, not that way. And so I help diagnosing and help people have more frictionless growth in their companies.
I like it. Now, I'm assuming that comes from a place of great experience. And I'm curious of like where that experience came from, because I'm assuming that you had to go not only just do it yourself and have to navigate this, but like, did you sit in on a bunch of these conversations? Like, where do you think the wealth of that knowledge came from to be able to teach it?
Oh my gosh. If you could sit in my seat, I tell people I have a front row seat to the circus. It is fascinating what you see in corporate America. I mean, there's crazy stuff like I've had a lion somebody called and there was a lion in the building. I've had
a genuine lion. I'm sorry.
Genuine lion, caged, but a lion in the building. I've had people call who have, we have drug rings, sex rings. We have people, having affairs. The stories I could tell you about being HR is absolutely insane. But the thing that I have seen is, how do we decide who gets laid off and who stays? How do we decide who gets fired? How does that process work? What's actually being said behind closed doors? And I think unlike somebody who's maybe just stayed in a small company, I started in a small company and then went to a very large Fortune 50 company. So I've seen it on all different fronts. And because my specialty as HR is working with fast growing tech companies who are doing mergers and acquisitions and high growth.
Yeah.
Boy, I've probably seen 10,000. I've probably had to fire 10,000 people in my career. Really? I mean, can you believe that? I'm not saying it to brag it. I'm not saying it to brag. It's a horrible statistic. But when you've seen that many people and the way the decisions were made, and you've handled the company side of the lawsuits, or you've seen people get promoted and you figure out what are they doing different than other people. I think I'm a walking database.
Yeah, you have to have all that in there.
About this. That are absolutely fascinating. They're so rich. So I think I have that to offer to people that very few people have that kind of experience. They may have studied things, but I've seen things.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. You synthesize it down. I think I talked about it recently on a podcast. Like you ever, it's the person that you ever with the cruise ship that the engine won't start up and they had to call somebody out?
I haven't heard that.
Oh, this is quick. It's a quick one, but it's a good one. So cruise ship breaks down and the engine won't start up. It's an older engine. And they like, we need to get the guy, like this older guy who's retired, and they fly him out from his house to go to the cruise ship. And he goes down below and he walks around a little bit. He's checking some things and he gets a little wrench and he taps his spot. The whole thing starts up, right? and they say, send us a bill. And it says $10,000. They go, what? Can you itemize this? How could it be $10,000? And he puts on there $100 for tapping, $9,900 for knowing where to tap.
Oh my gosh. That's so true.
Right.
That's
Like,
so true.
you've been through it so much. It's like, yeah, it's not to the time you're paying for it and the time I'm here with you. You're paying for the last 25 years of my life of learning and knowing and understanding how to make this happen to where it's valuable for you in 25 minutes or an hour's window of time. So,
Well, how many people get to sit in on everything? I mean, I
yeah,
was in the room when the CEO was fired. I was
wow.
part of when the board did a hostile takeover for a company. These
Yeah,
are really interesting things to be a part of and
yeah.
see. So even from a senior level down to a very entry level, having a pretty darn good understanding of what's going on and how something's going to play out with
Mm.
people.
And so with those things and playing out, do you notice certain traits and certain things that, I mean, maybe they exhibited to you early on? You can go, you know what? I interact with this person. And I can sense based on these things where they're going, or like in a good way and a bad way. Is like,
Oh
can
yeah,
you gutturally sense that? What are some of
I
the things that people may not pay attention that are good things to be able to have as traits?
I teach the 5 stages of career growth.
Okay.
And this again is because I've seen all of this and it was driving me crazy that we would let people go that we thought were fantastic, right? We love them so much we hire them. 6 months later, we fired them because we don't think they're a good hire.
Hmm.
And it just made me crazy. Why is this happening? At the same time, I was doing training for people and saying, how can I help people be successful? And
Hmm.
the light bulb went on, and I realized that the same reason people were getting fired were the exact same things, traits that somebody had in spades that were our top performers, but it was by level. And so
Mm.
what I did was put together the 5 stages of career growth and said, there are actually skill sets that you need to have that if you don't have, will get you, you won't be successful at a
Mhm.
company. And you can predict with certainty what is the next step in your career and what's the skill set
Interesting.
that you're going to need to have to succeed. So for example, when you get to mid management, if you ever want to be a director, you
Mm.
have to get comfortable with conflict and you have to be able to have conversations, hard
Yeah.
conversations
Mm.
that create safety. And that is a skill set that's a fatal flaw that some people don't develop in their career stalls out.
Interesting.
So at each level, there's something like that that I can teach people. And then I teach them how do you do that thing better? And how do you prepare yourself so you're ready?
Now, are you able to list the five, or that's going to be like too
Yeah,
much to a
yeah. I
name?
list the five and I say at each stage, here's the things that are going to trip you up. Here's the
Okay.
things you need to know. Here's how your conversations with your manager change.
Uh-huh.
Here's the thing that you won't realize is coming that's really hard. Yeah, just
Mhm.
lay it all out.
So what are the five then? Like, what are those? Is it easy to rattle off what five there? I don't have to go deep into
Sure.
every single one, but can you
I'll try
rattle
and
them
do
off?
a summary form of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Beginning, your first job, your job is to follow instructions. You're a doer.
Okay.
Second stage of your career, you can't just be doing. You have to learn to do by yourself. Your manager has to give broad guidelines and you have to get independent. So
Mm.
independence is the skill that you're after.
Gotcha.
And then in a cruel twist of irony, you go to stage 3, middle management, and you can't work by yourself anymore because interdependence is the name of the game. And unless you can learn to collaborate with other departments
Yeah.
well, you're going to sink.
Makes
You
sense.
go to the next stage, you're a builder. You can't continue to just be transactional. As a builder, you have to define strategy. You can't just wait for somebody else to tell you
Yeah.
what to
Get
do.
the
And that's
architect to lay
where
it all out.
your whole job is about getting buy-in. And
Mm.
it's a sales job to some degree. You're saying your pitch over and over to get your projects prioritized and funded.
Mm.
And then the most senior role, they get a hard rap because people say they're out of touch, but they're
Mhm.
literally spending, I call it the rule of 33. They can't just focus on their department. They have to focus 33% of their time across the company,
Mhm.
33% of the time with their own function, but 33% of their time spent working with outside boards of directors, new business opportunities,
Mhm.
uh, funding for the company. And so you have to be aware that that's how it has to change
Mm.
or you won't be successful.
I've never heard of that before, and I love it because I mean, I interact with a lot of executives. I have, clients that are in that realm. And it's funny is like as you state that, I'm like, yeah, that does seem to be one of the things people battle with as they go. And then I
Mhm.
have friends and family that are in the corporate realm too. So you kind of get to hear the conversations. And as much as that sounds like it's business, I think that's also like a person who's building a business. Like you're going to go through some of the same stuff, right? There's going to be roles you
So,
might play all of them someday, you
absolutely. There's
know?
a lot of crossover.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's almost like I look at it as it's human adaptation and skill set development. No matter where
Mhm.
you're at, it's necessary to have those things because those are the things that will apply. Like I look at what you're talking about as like getting buy-in. Like I'm gonna have to get my kid to eat broccoli. Like, hey man, let's have a little conversation here. Like it may be something to parent with or in a relationship type stuff. It's gonna be something where I got to spend some outside time, like having conversations, about we'll call it how to make my marriage great and how to make sure I'm serving you and then also serving the kids because we're married, but this family also has kids to get. So there's some
My
interesting
kids
care over.
used that, they used to, they were very young, probably 8 years old. And I remember telling one of my kids to do something, we'd had a little problem. I used the model that I teach people.
Hmm.
And my son started to laugh and he goes, Mom just HR'd you. I mean,
Yeah,
my kids know the
yeah,
model. They know when I'm using the tools that I teach people
yeah.
about how to have safe conversations when conflict arises and address a problem.
I like it. So then what are some of the things that stand out to you that maybe people there's this great statement. I think it's a guy named it's either Tim or Tom Murphy. I got to figure out, but it's a statement of it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar.
Oh,
And I think a lot of people are unaware of the jar they're operating in. They go, why do I keep like the person you said they're good, but they get in and they get fired in 6 months. What were
right.
they not seeing or what were they not aware of that maybe you can give them some nuggets to go like, hey, if you're doing this, this is something you want to be able to pay attention to and maybe
Yeah.
hopefully adjust.
Oh, here's what's so fascinating. I'll just tell you a very quick story. I told you I was in the room when the CEO was fired.
Hmm.
And it was crazy because we thought we were there for a stock option exercise. Head of the board was there.
Hmm.
And next thing I know, the CEO is escorted out of the building. And
Hmm.
I'm escorted to meet the new CEO. And I thought while I was walking over, I'm not surprised. I don't think my colleagues would be super surprised that the CEO was fired. And it's not like we talked about him
Hmm.
behind closed doors, but I think we inherently knew his strengths and weaknesses. I sat down and the new CEO says to me, first thing he says, Wow, Tessa, so glad to have you here. I'm going to have to let go of half of the executive team. And my question for you is, do you need to be one of them? I'm like,
Hmm.
what are you talking about? And he said,
I'll feel supportive and
you
like the
have a
other person.
reputation for not getting along with sales. And for me to do my job, you have to be really good partners with sales. It's incredibly important. And I want to give you the opportunity to do it, but I wanted to let you know. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, it's true not just for the CEO, but down to every employee that the person we should know best of all, me,
Hmm.
you have a blind spot around. And so I teach people how to create their own top performer plan and how to get feedback during the course of the year because most people just rely on an annual performance appraisal. And I can tell you one thing, you're not going to know squat after that because 75% of the people get a meets expectation. I don't know what the heck that means.
Hmm.
So I teach people how to actually identify what they need, what they want, and then develop this plan and find informal mentors and
Hmm.
ask their manager for feedback and do a whole bunch of different things to get the feedback so that you do have a clearer view of how you're viewed. Because if you have some negative to neutral feedback, I can guarantee that's the tip of the iceberg. 10x it, and that's what people are really feeling because we're
Hmm.
so horrible at people at sharing
Yeah.
particularly difficult or negative information.
Yeah, that's true. No one wants to deal with the person who's mad at them because you told them the truth. So most people kind of avoid that a little bit. That's unfortunate because then next thing you know, it's like you think you're good, and all of a sudden someone comes and says, "Pack up your desk," and it's like unexpected.
Yeah,
And that,
you're right. That's the one thing I know as an HR person is managers are going to come and they're going to say, should I need to fire this person. I'm going to say, do they know it's coming? And they're going
mhm,
to say, yeah, of course they know it's coming. And I know 100% for sure they don't know it's coming
yeah,
because we're just not good at giving
yeah,
that honest feedback. So we got to open up the aperture and make it less scary.
yeah. It's crazy because I don't operate in that world, but I always pull the logic from it, and I go, "That's a lot of the times how like sometimes marriages fall apart. Like I'm not
You're
happy
just
for a divorce." It's like,
exactly.
what? What are you talking about? Well, you didn't get it. Like, not. How would I have known? Like, I'm not a mind reader, but I've been dropping these hints. How does it get there though? Is it because people just there? Are they just completely aloof? They don't know what's going on, or is it solely in your mind? Is it because people don't pay attention? Like, or they just
Mhm.
don't? Is it really because they don't want to communicate?
It's because we have halfway conversations. I want you to pay
Oh,
attention now that I've used that term. Halfway conversation is what we walk around doing all day long. And if I go sit at a company or you sit at home and listen, what you'll find is we think we're telling the truth or,
yeah.
we're getting really honest. But in fact, we're having these halfway decode between the lines conversations, right? This is
Yeah.
where it comes from when it's like, are you okay at home? And I'm like, I'm fine. Well, I know you're not fine.
Yeah, no, you're
So
not. Yeah.
that's a halfway conversation. So we have them all day long. And what I try and teach people is how to have a real conversation that's not a halfway conversation, but do it in a way that doesn't assume bad intent or the other, and that creates some safety to have the conversation. Because people shut down really quickly if they feel pinned against a wall.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a human thing that
It's human. Yeah, it's not a man.
humanity.
It's a
It's
human.
not a mask, but yeah, and it's a weird thing because I think once you're able to do that, people talk about like good marriage is communication, communication. I think communication isn't the issue; it's what you're communicating,
Yes.
and a lot of the stuff that moves us to be better are the things that people struggle to communicate to say. Like I always like have these speech. I go on stage and I talk. Well, obviously, you saw me speak in a stage, and a lot of the times I have conversations, and I go, all of us in here know someone who we can't talk to. Does anybody know, right by show of hands, know someone you wish you could say something to help them, but you won't because you know how they respond? And like 99% of the room goes up. And it
Right.
goes, man, how many people are just not communicating? And this is why the world becomes this, I didn't know what's coming. And well, you should have known. Like, well, no, you didn't tell me. And it's a very interesting thing that it shows up in that realm, the corporate realm, where you
Oh,
think like we're talking a lot, but we're not.
I put out a TikTok post and I asked people, are you afraid to speak up at work? I had several 100,000 people respond,
Hmm.
and 94% said, I will leave my company before I'll speak up.
Wow.
And it scares me because what's happening is, I call it the bye-bye generation. They would
Yeah.
just as soon leave as have to write the script for the company. But what we do is everybody's just moving around. The same problem exists everywhere. And
Everywhere.
we know that we can connect people's job happiness to being able to have a voice. But
Hmm.
people get really trapped with either going too far one way and getting too vocal or too aggressive, or
Hmm.
saying nothing, going to silent, and
Yeah.
quiet leads to quit. So I think there's this in between ground, and I just don't think people have been taught how to have a conversation that's safe. I
Yeah.
tell them that even if you botch the whole conversation, there's three magic questions that will at least keep the conversation open and assume good intent. It's ending the phrase or the conversation with, is that what you intended?
Hmm.
Do you
Interesting.
see it differently? Or is there something here something going on I don't understand?
Yeah.
Because that allows for the conversation to continue. But most of the conversations you hear at work, and a lot of them at home, assume the other person, the
Yeah.
manager, the
Interesting.
whoever, is trying to do something nefarious, or, really doesn't care about you.
Yeah. That's tough. And then so I guess your thought process is that might be the reason we have this whole quiet quitting kind of industry, or is that
Yeah,
even tied in that same realm there?
absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. That's
It
scary,
is
man.
quiet quitting, but it also has to do with the generations. I've studied a lot about boomers, Xers, millennials, and
Yeah.
Gen Z. And in short, long-term thinking to very short-term thinking. It also correlates with a short fuse, short ability to withstand certain things happening. And that's why you see people taking off and quitting before they'll address the issue.
Excellent. Yeah, that's why with my kids, I try to be really big on like teaching them to communicate, interact with other human beings. Like we'll go.
Yeah,
It sounds like something so small, but there'll be times when I go and we're in a public place, and I'll ask my son, "Hey, I need you to go over there and ask that person for whatever it is." And he looks at me like with death and fear in his eyes. I go, "What? Go ask
yes.
him." No. So I'm like, no, we're not going to have you be in this world and not be able to communicate with somebody who's right there next to you. It's okay to communicate. Like when the pandemic was just picking up and masks weren't mandatory on an airplane, I remember I was sitting in it was my wife and I traveling somewhere. I'm on the aisle seat, and then across from me you have the row, and then there's the next aisle seat, and then you have the middle seat, and the window. So I'm in the
Right.
aisles. There's a row next to my left, a seat, and someone in the far window, and they're literally like not even 6 feet away from my head. And so all of a sudden, I'm just doing my thing, talking to my wife, and I kind of sense some conversation. I look to the left, and it's the flight attendant. I look at the guy in the window, and he goes, "Can you make that guy put his mask on?" And I go, "Did you just
He
get
said,
the flight attendant? You could have just asked me, man. I would have been happy to put it on. You didn't have to." I was like, "We have to be able to communicate with each other in this world, don't we? Like, just ask, like, hey, buddy, you mind putting the mask on because it made me feel safer? Like, all right, put it on. I don't care. Like, it wasn't a big deal, but it was very odd. Like, you're 6 feet away and couldn't talk to another human being."
Yeah,
And that
I really
scares
think it's
me.
social media has really ruined us in many ways, and
Yeah.
it's had a profound impact in our ability to look another person in the eye and have a conversation.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's a good thing you're on social media, isn't it? Doing all your stuff, TikTok
I know.
queen. I'm
Actually,
joking.
I hate I don't like it sometimes. Can I admit that? I
Yeah.
do think it
Yeah.
makes us soul sick sometimes. And so
Yeah.
there's a fine line between helping people and not letting my own state of mind change by virtue of being in
Hmm.
social media so much.
Yeah. I get it. And I agree. There's even the whole dynamic nowadays of like the people, because like you can't talk to people, you can't interact in human. So like,
Yeah.
the whole thing, I'm sure you had to have seen it with the girls at the gym are getting mad at guys looking at them. Well, they put a tripod up and a camera up, take pictures of their butt in public. And I'm like, and so I don't go to gym. Thankfully, I have a gym in my house. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this people out there in the world. But people do, like, you can't, how dare you just gawk at me over here? And I'm like, I get it, but there's a camera up. And then somebody made a post the other day, which really like resonated deeply. He goes, so you're telling me that I can't see in person what you're going to put on the internet later. Like I can't see it in person, but you're gonna happily put it on the internet with to strangers a little bit later. So I can't see it in person, but I can see it online. It's a very weird that I go, yeah, that's what's the difference? And when you said that, I go, that's probably it. People, it's like the in person thing now becomes a little more difficult. The conversations, the interactions. Like I'm not used to the human interaction because social media has become my place of comfort.
Yeah. And it's easy to be rude on social media too. I've noticed that. It's
Yeah, it
easy
is too.
to say mean things or do mean things,
Yeah.
and it's easy to just cancel, like I'm not going to follow you anymore. And I think a little bit of that translates into the approach to the workplace, this idea that, hey, I don't want to write the script. I'm just going to leave if you can't treat me right. And yet we're not
Mhm.
willing to have conversations to say, here's what I need from you.
Yeah.
Here's, would you help me with this skill, or would you help me with this, getting to this particular place in the
Yeah.
company?
And I can see that being problematic. If you don't have that skill and it shows up at work, I can see why there's a big thing. Like, I'm a man of faith and I'm not a big fan of this whole, like the Tinder industry and the Tinder world of like, let's just get a quick hookup for the evening, never talk to you again. And the dynamic of that, like, I feel like it's harder nowadays to be in a relationship for people. It's so hard that it's like, it's easier just to be on the internet. In fact, there was a podcast I saw where these three, like 5 or 6 Instagram models were at this little setting and the guy goes, hey, everybody go online. Which one of you, and just, if you just, would you prefer to have a long-term relationship or an Instagram? Like a good long-term relationship, would you choose Instagram over that? To a person, they all chose Instagram. I'm
Really?
like, yeah, crazy. I
Oh,
was like, you would choose
wow.
Instagram over a long-term loving relationship. Yeah, because Instagram gives me what I need. And it was just the weirdest thing. I'm like, that is so skewed. It's so crazy. These are people that are followed by millions of little girls. And I go, oh, my daughter better not follow one of these girls because that is craziness.
Well, there's actually, I'm an expert in jobs. There's jobs now, and a lot of people getting work being avatars for alternate reality, and to be
Really?
friends of people or girlfriends, boyfriends on avatar, fake girlfriends and boyfriends through virtual reality. Can you even imagine that as a job?
That's crazy. I mean, I know they have, like, I was reading stuff about Japan where now like the population's declining because people don't want to get in relationships, they want to work. And then what they do
Mhm.
is they just have people that fill the need. Like you can pay someone to go, not even like a date, but like just to go have conversation. The guy's a
Yeah.
conversationalist. He just has a
Mhm.
conversation. People that are
As a friend.
cuddlers, you just cuddle. That's all we do. We just cuddle. And it's like, so you
Mhm.
outsource the simple human need, but that,
We
oh
have.
man, the world is different, isn't it?
Yeah. We've.
I could have
That's
never
why
predicted this.
it's so important to have some positive things on social media. I guess that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
I'm still there, is because I think
People
it
like
can
you.
be a force for good as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of crazy stuff too.
Yeah, but it's good. I'm glad that you frame it like that because there is kind of like the thing where yeah, you can look at social media and go, oh, it's crazy, but like I'm on there because I also believe that there's things that I can put in the world that get positive feedback. I get people that have a great message about this. Help me. Thank you so much. It served. I needed to watch this today. And I go, I'm glad you did because there's a lot of people that go out there and they're just trying to just get followers. So it's entertaining and watch. I'm gonna take a bath in milk and Cheetos in the bathtub. Like yeah, which is for some I think it's stupid personally, but some people get entertained by that, and then but they don't face life. And so at least I give you some nugget that hopefully gives you like, okay, this helps my life be better. So if I wasn't there or you weren't there, man, I'd be scared to see what exists because there's not a whole lot out there that's great all the time.
Well, I'm proud to say I've never done a TikTok dance, so
There
I'm
you
gonna.
go. Me neither.
I haven't had to do that, but I did, on that topic, my book starts with me telling a story, a personal story about when the workforce changed for me. And I had to ask for a long leave of absence. We thought our daughter was going to take her life.
Mm.
And the day after I left on this leave of absence, she did attempt suicide. And thank heavens she's with us today.
Yeah.
And it really changed me. And so I shared a story last week about this and about some perspectives that I have of the story. It's pretty personal. And I got several beautiful messages back from people who said, I was on the verge of suicide and I saw your message and I loved what you said about X. And I shared it with my dad. And it's really changed how I think. Thank you,
Awesome. Yeah.
And so there is the opportunity to change things for good.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the book because we haven't talked about it up in any conversation yet. So let's talk about it. The unspoken truth. So you mind sharing the book and kind of going deeper down the purpose of it, what brought you to write, all that fun stuff.
Well, like I just said, it was really this idea of taking this 12 weeks off work and coming back after that and feeling completely changed. Not unlike so many people in the world who have pivoted their careers or reprioritized during the pandemic what's important or changed their life entirely. And I could see that so many people were burned out. And burnout, we know, is also a function of how much control we feel like we have. And people aren't feeling like
Yeah.
they have control in the workforce. And I thought, you know what? I need to write a book. I've wanted to do this for some time. I can see where the disconnects are for people. There's these common problems everybody has. And whether it's about getting a raise or being paid fairly for what you do, or feeling like my company actually doesn't see what I'm capable of, or, I could list them off. And I said, there are lies of the workforce. There are things that people believe on how things work, and they don't actually work that way. And I'm going to replace it with the truths of the workforce. So each chapter has a lie of the workforce and a truth of the workforce. For example, one would be we think that companies are bad. Think companies are horrible. They're the enemy. And the truth is, companies aren't good or bad. Companies are aligned to get a profit. And actually, as irritating as that is to people today, if you understand that, it changes the projects you work on, the way you talk about things, the way you ask for raises, because instead of it being about you, you're like, here's how what I'm doing is contributing to the bottom line, or here's why I want the company to invest in this because it's going to help the bottom line. So I run through the lies and truths of the workforce. Another big one's balance. People think their manager is, overworking them. And I'm like, you know what? Never be more loyal to a company than it can reasonably be to you in return. And that's not saying anything about quiet quitting. That's just saying you should put in a hard day's work, but you, not your manager's not your life coach. You're responsible to create boundaries for work-life balance and decide what the right loyalty mix looks like. And it might be different at different times in your career, but one day I looked up and I had about destroyed all my relationships. I was working way too much, and that's on me. Yeah. So I teach all these truths of the work.
Some good personal development in there. That's the that's the not easy to accept, but great to be able to pay attention to and know.
Yeah. And it's different. I couldn't find a book like it. Not one book is written like a workplace manual that has, you'll see it's like pictures, charts, do this, not that, say this, not that. It's really a manual with reference items that you could pick up at any stage in your career. If you're beginning, you read maybe chapter 1. Yeah. Maybe you're deciding to leave a company, skip straight to chapter 18. So, or it just meets you wherever you're at.
It's good. That's really, really good. I can't think of any that I've read also, because I always wonder, like, how much am I supposed to know? Because I'm not in that space, but I get the logic of how you're talking to it. And it's awesome that somebody finally created it from a wealth of experience and knowledge. And because there's like definitely books I'd like to write, but I go, I haven't been seasoned enough to write that book. It'd be cool. Like, it's a good concept. It needs to be handed to somebody else. But not only have you gone through the gamut and actually done this and seen it in real time, but you had your own life experience with it. You had your own kind of understanding and go, okay, I'm also a person. Because my guess is this book would have been good for you to have years ago.
Oh my gosh. What I would have given for this book, I wish I would have had it. It would have helped me avoid a lot of my own mistakes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically, if I could just tell people, if I run through the things we teach, it's about people, promotability, teach about loyalty, burnout, company politics,
Wow.
power in the workforce. So some of those things, pay, a couple of chapters on pay and leverage. When do you have leverage and when do you not? How do you talk about pay?
Wow, that's a good one. It sounds like there's a lot of cool things in there.
Thank you.
Who would not want someone to have this? Would this be somewhere like I'm assuming it's got to be in some way good and bad for both the employee and the company, right? In both aspects. It's not. I don't even know if that's the right way to frame it, but I'm sure it's things that benefit the company and don't benefit the company, but also things that benefit the employee, maybe don't benefit the employee to know.
I don't think some people are afraid. I think that it's a book about how to take down your company. It's not. This is a book about
Mm.
making people and companies partners again. It really is about how do
Ah,
we work
okay.
together? How do you work
I like
together
that.
in a way that can create a more frictionless career for yourself? How do you talk the
Mhm.
language of the company? How do you get more of what
Yeah.
you want and less of the stuff
Yeah.
that's, dysfunctional? And I think it really benefits
Uh-huh.
both parties. I would want my employees to read it. I think it's an
Awesome.
important thing for them to understand about how companies work and how to find
Mhm.
value in the work that they're doing rather than just doing their job description, which may or may not be useful at all. How do you identify,
Yeah.
see, and solve problems the company cares about? So we're going to do
Mhm.
corporate book clubs and walk
Oh,
employees through
good.
this and help make
That's
people
pretty awesome.
friends again with their companies.
That's good. I like the idea of it because I look at the thing of the whole quiet quit and move on. I think people like you're talking about they avoid the problem. It's like the problem you may avoid this problem, but you just get a new selection or collection of problems the next thing you do. And it's going to
Hmm.
be you resolving the same problems possibly or facing it, or you can find a way to solve the problem and then become a problem solver. And you can actually enjoy not having to change jobs and locations and all your different stuff and find new friends and meet a new boss and learn a new system. Like it just, you're going to have to deal with that if you go somewhere or you sit here, put your feet down on the ground, figure out how to be a partner with your company and do what needs to be done both sides. There's going to be different work, but still work.
That's right. Yeah, nobody should be
I like
taking it from anybody. We can just work better together.
Yeah. I like it. You did it, get something good. I'm excited to see what this turns into and kind of how it kind of rolls out for you and which is already rolling out, but to see it do great things. I like it. Like you mentioned earlier, with Nobody Hurts, like it's kind of like having this tiger by tail. It's something awesome and amazing, but I'm building and building and watching it take off, which is awesome. It's a great feeling, I'm sure.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. So where can people get the book and where can people find out more about you?
They can get the book at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere
Mm,
books are sold.
I like it.
I would recommend that people visit me on my any social platform, Job Dr. Tessa. We just rolled out the podcast 5 weeks ago, so it's only
Oh,
5 weeks
congrats.
old. The deep dive on
Uh,
all of the topics that we bring up on TikTok. People can actually hear me solving those problems with callers.
yeah.
And already in
Awesome.
5 weeks, we hit number 21 in the nation on career podcasts. I mean,
There
it's
you
just going
go.
crazy. We haven't
It's a
even
need.
advertised really. So please check it. The Job Doctor is in podcast as well.
Awesome. I like it. You guys go check out the podcast. All right. Last question. You ready for it?
I don't know. Tell
Here
me.
you are.
Lay on
Nothing crazy. Here it is. What promise did God or the creator make to the world when they created you?
me. Hmm. Well, I guess whew, I guess the promise was that you're going to meet somebody who's I made somebody who is never going to you'll never have a dull moment around her, and she's going
Mm,
to dream big. And we need people to dream big so that we can get some stuff done in the world, I guess.
I like it. I'll take that. That's a good one because we do need
That's
big
a hard,
dreamers and we
really
need
hard
people
question
to,
because I don't think I've ever even thought about it. I mean, I
yeah,
start each
no,
day by just hoping I can make a difference in the world, but I've never thought
yeah.
of it that way.
Yeah. No, somebody asked me that at one time. I was at like a Starbucks and he asked me a question. It stopped me. I was like, I've never been asked this question. I don't know how to answer it. And it leaves me with a thought. Like every day I kind of think like, am I living the promise that's made for me? And I feel
Hmm.
like it changes as life changes, situation change. Like right now, your promise to the world is probably different than it was a year ago, or 2 years
Absolutely.
ago, because there's different nuances of what you put in. And so I think it's okay to understand, but I think it's good to actively operate as if I'm fulfilling on a promise. That's just my personal opinion. So I like that you get up and say, "How can I be of service?" That's a good one.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, thank you so very much for hanging out with me. I had a blast chatting with you. It was a good
You.
conversation, great conversation. And you guys in the world who are tuned in, if this resonates with you, go grab the book, go follow her on TikTok. She doesn't dance, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But she does do cool stuff and share things. And if for someone in your life you know that needs to hear this message, that for some reason you go like this, my cousin, brother, sister, mom, they would love this, share the episodes. They can get a copy of the book. They can go and apply it to their lives and hopefully live an amazing life. And outside of that, as always, make the most of your Oz Shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Tessa White signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Oz Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.